The Wright Reasons, Season 3, Bachelor in Paradise.
And we're back.
Oh,
I need to set
friends.
this. How do I not set my microphone?
Okay, whoa.
There we go.
We have comments already.
Okay, so first and foremost, we have a little bit of a new setup on our end. There's a new computer being used.
Pineapples.
There's also pineapples.
Umbrellas.
Umbrellas. Question needs to be answered real quick. How do we sound? How's it coming through for everybody? Are we too loud? Are we too quiet? Let us know. This is a new mixer and a different computer being used than we're used to. So I just want to confirm that we're not coming through at a booming volume, because that would suck for everybody.
Yes. No, that is true. So if you guys can answer that. Hey, friends.
I'm excited.
I am so excited. This is going to be crazy.
Let me see here. I think it looks pretty good.
Perfect.
I think our volume's not obscenely loud, so that's good. But let us know if it is. Awesome.
Fabulous. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole.
Okay, so if y'all are joining us on YouTube,
Y'all?
yes, I said y'all. I'm trying.
Who are you?
Okay, this is who I am. I'm trying hard not to use guys.
What about folks? I like folks.
That is, to me, more uncomfortable to say than y'all. Like, hey, folks. I don't, okay. Hello, humans. Is that better? Or
Yeah.
is humans better than y'all?
Hello, fellow human beings on the planet Earth. So, I don't know. Folks, y'all, whatever. It
Okay.
sounds weird. You never say y'all, though.
So, I did when I worked in restaurants.
How long ago
Okay,
was that?
if you are joining us on the YouTube, please do us a favor and click the thumbs up button. It helps other people find this video, our show, just like if you are listening on the podcast. If you can give us a 5-star rating and leave a review, it not only gives our heart warm fuzzies, but it helps other people, again, find it. And that's what we want. We want to spread this message and talk about all the Bachelor goodness. So thank you to those of you hitting the thumbs up button right now. We so appreciate it. Please, please, please do that for us. It means a lot. Additionally,
have you seen our finale recap video yet?
Oh, good question. Hannah's finale was a doozy.
And a half.
Doozy.
Sorry to interrupt there. That's if you haven't seen our finale recap of the most recent season of The Bachelorette, some of our commentary may seem odd, so I would suggest you go find that.
Yeah. So I know I'm really excited to recap Paradise. We have not ever recapped. So The Wright Reasons has not been around since Paradise. So this will be our first time recapping Paradise. So this should be interesting. See, the comment section says that they are in support of y'all.
I didn't say I wasn't supportive. I just said you've never said that before.
It's going to catch on. I'm going to start using it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all? All right.
Catch on real great in Manhattan.
You know, I've typically been
find you at a country
my own
western
person.
bar one day and just have no idea what happened. Anyway, so I'm a little nervous isn't the right word. I'm apprehensive to cover Bachelor in Paradise because, we're recapping this. There's 2 episodes, so I don't want to talk about the entirety of them at this point because we'll recap them as we go through. But going into it, my thoughts were, we're just going to cover a bunch of people getting drunk and swimming? Like, this doesn't seem fun. Like, what content is there going to be? And this is me forgetting that,
This was Kyle forgetting, all of the Bachelor. I don't know what you were thinking.
I don't know. Because all their advertising is like, look, it's just
it's
us
Clay
on the
working
beach.
out on the beach.
Right, so, how do you get excited? I mean, I know that some people do get excited to cover that, but I'm just kind of like...
Well, for our content.
And additionally, I remember last Paradise, when I was watching more just for the fun of it and kind of making fun of it the entire time, it was all of the Colton Tia stuff, and who fucking cares? I mean, that... Oh my god, who cares? No, they didn't care. It was just such a weirdly shoehorned in plot line that I had a hard time getting excited to actually recap this. And also 2 nights in a row. Oh, that's That's a lot of content. Anyway, so much.
Those are Kyle's thoughts.
I mean, I'm ready to do it. I was pleasantly surprised, I will say that.
Yeah.
But also, whew.
So it's not only is it a lot of content, like time-wise, 4 hours a week is a lot of TV.
Yeah.
This season is already off to the races with drama and with things that we need to talk about and have conversations about, because
Did not expect that.
I did not either. And I will preface all of this with, we watch the show and take in the content just like you. We do not look for spoilers. We don't have a friend that's a producer on the show. We watch it just like you. And so there are things that we'll say based on the information that we have that maybe a few weeks later we'll say, hey, remember how we said that?
Yeah.
We were wrong.
Yeah.
And so that is something that we are very open about. And it's okay for us to be wrong. It's okay for you to be wrong. That's part of why we have the commentary like this around the show, is that
anyone to be wrong.
We're allowed as humans, as y'all, we are all allowed to change our opinions based on new information. So just because we think, something is this way because of the information that we have, if we get new information, we could then think something is a different way. And so I just wanted to reflect on that, because I think that there's a lot that we're going to be talking about that is going to be a bit controversial with our opinions on it. I know that it's going to be a bit controversial. So we're humans, right? And we're looking at this show through the lens of mental health, psychology, communication, healthy relationships, sociology. Any other lenses?
Sex.
Yeah, like healthy sex education.
I forgot that one.
Sex positive stuff. And yeah, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm also I'm not nervous, but this is going to hit on some very interesting points, and I'm excited to have those conversations with everybody watching and listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah? Does that summarize it? Okay.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Thank you guys all. Oh, see? I did it again. Thank y'all. Thank you all. Thank you all, humans, for being here. If you're here live with us, thank you. If you're catching the recording, thank you. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up, rate and review. And without any further ado.
Oh, I think we forgot one thing that we like to do at the beginning of each season.
Oh, what?
Actually introduce ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, everybody. So, my name is Kyle.
I'm Rachel.
And we're co-founders of the business Wright Wellness Center. We help people have happier, healthier relationships by teaching scientifically proven research in an easy to understand and fun format, because the world needs that kind of thing. Because, we're expected to be good at relationships, right? But I didn't get a class. Did you get a class on how to be good in a relationship? If so, let me know. I haven't heard of one yet. And so we're out there to kind of help the world get access to the tools they need to have a better relationship, because those exist. And I didn't find out about it until I met Rachel, and she didn't find out about it until she had a master's degree. So that's a little crazy, and not everyone can go through that exact set of circumstances. So we're trying to break down that barrier between going to see a therapist and going to buy a self-help book for your relationship. And we thought that commentating on the Bachelor franchise is a great thing to bring what we do into the world of the Bachelor, because there's a lot of not misinformation, but odd perceptions and perspectives about relationships that come up on the show, and people project those onto their relationship. So,
well, okay, everybody does, right?
Yeah,
like,
course.
I've been so I'm a total Bachelor superfan. For those of you who don't know, if this is your first time tuning in, I've only missed, I think we counted, I've missed 5 seasons total of The Bachelor, and
single-digit seasons, though, like way back in.
Oh yeah. It was I think I missed 3, 4, 6, and 7, or something like that.
And we're on season 20 something now.
Yeah. So I'm a huge Bachelor fan, and what I noticed in my practice when I was in private practice as a therapist was people would use people on The Bachelor to help describe themselves, their relationship, as a point of reference. So they would say, oh, I'm like Colton because yada, 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 or I'm like so-and-so because yada, yada, yada. And so we thought that it was a really important conversation to have. And so that's where this whole thing came about.
Anyways, and also the common phrase uttered on the show, questioning if someone is there for the correct purpose, is often called. You like that? People say, you're not here for the right reasons. And our last name happens to be Wright, so right reasons, y'all. Yeah. See,
hey!
Then it doesn't sound weird. I think you say it weird.
I say it weird?
So.
Y'all.
Sounds weird.
It's because my dad's from Ohio.
Anything to do with that?
No, I have, like, some southern roots in me. No? No?
No.
Okay, let's get started.
All right. Well, you took notes for the first, before the first commercial.
I did. Okay. So, Bachelor in Paradise. By the way, if you want to connect with us on social media, you can follow us at The Wright Reasons. It's on the little board over there. And our personal Instagrams are also...
At The Wright Reasons.
Are also in the description of this video. It's at The Wright_Rachel and at The Wright_Kyle.
Not very creative, but also effective.
Clarity over creativity sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So I don't think that we need to really do the intros of the people, because they did a pretty good job kind of catching all the viewers up to speed on, like, this is Tayshia. Her dad's overprotective. This is Blake. He's open and honest and had his heart broken.
Maybe to a fault.
Well, yeah, this was his intro.
Buddy.
We're not there yet. Katie is, spying on people for everybody. Cam is rapping, which I wrote down. I did not consent to this. Jane is drinking hot sauce. Hannah G gets her intro. And Demi says, I'm going to paradise. I am paradise, which is very on brand. Clay talks about how he did not make it to the NFL and his relationship with Angela ended, and so he is ready to find somebody new. Nicole packs tissues in her suitcase because she cried a lot on Colton season, and she is lifting weights with Halo Top.
Did you think she actually packed those tissues, or was it just a bit to make fun of herself?
That. 100%. 100%. And then
Who
Chris
else?
Bukowski gets introduced,
Yep.
which, I love seeing an older person, which, okay,
There are a couple
can we
people who
talk
are over
about
age
the
of 30.
fact, Chris Bukowski, I thought, if you would have asked me, hey, Rach, how old is Chris Bukowski? I would have been like 42. Because when I was younger watching the show, he still looked older to me, which means, like, he's aged very well. The guy's only 32. We're, like, very close in age. And I'm a bit disturbed.
There are actually more... I find this interesting. Bachelor in Paradise this season has more people over the age of 30 than I think maybe ever amassed on the show in the last, 10 years.
What?
There's a couple people that are over the age of 30 in this season of Bachelor in Paradise, and that is a rarity for the franchise. I find it very interesting. There's at least, I think there's 4 people who are over 30.
I think that that's fantastic.
I think it's important.
So after those intros, we cut to commercial, and we come back, and Chris Harrison is walking along the beach, welcoming us to another season of Paradise.
Yep.
By the way, total side note, this resort I have looked up on the interwebs, and it looks miserable. It's beautiful aesthetically, and it's on the beach, and it's stunning, but there is no air conditioning. Literally not any room with air conditioning.
Ugh.
You sleep outside and get eaten by bugs. There are no doors. I would not do well in Paradise.
Don't like that idea of no air conditioning. I'm okay sleeping outside as long as I have some sort of mesh barrier between me and the bugs.
There's no mesh.
Okay. I also wouldn't like Bachelor in Paradise. For a variety of reasons, the environment not as much, but also the no doors thing bothers me. No AC and no doors. If I'm going to be at a resort, I want those things. If I'm going camping, I'm okay not having them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but
it's basically camping with a bar.
That's not Paradise to me. I think my Paradise has air conditioning when I want it.
I don't think Paradise is camping either.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just a thing. Anyway, So Hannah G is the first one to arrive, and she's just adorable. I really, on Colton season, we did not get to see a lot of her. And post-Colton season, she did a lot of interviews and a lot of press. She's funny. She's really sweet. She's open. She's communicative.
We didn't get to see a lot of her personality in what she thinks on Colton season.
Correct.
We saw a lot of her on Colton season.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
A lot of showering. So she comes. She's excited. Blake shows up next.
Which, of course, because everyone was shipping Hannah G and Blake before this season started. So
Chris reminds Blake about his heartbreak recently and kind of pokes him about that right before going down to the beach. Always fun for him, I'm sure.
In true Chris Harrison fashion.
Right.
They order wait a minute. Okay, Cece in the comments says that Colton brought an air conditioning to Paradise. Is this true?
If you have proof of that, please send it to us.
I'm going to need to hear about this.
I will go back in time to make fun of Colton.
So Katie arrives, then Dylan arrives.
Mm-hmm.
Katie says that Dylan's cute. I know that we're just skimming through this, but we got to get to the meat of
Sydney
what went
shows
on.
up. Blake is like, oh, I like tall girls. Derek shows up.
Go Derek, fellow podcaster
Sydney,
of Bachelor Nation.
Oh, yeah, no. The fellow podcaster. Sydney takes a second to lash out at Colton for some reason. Not sure why that happened.
Yeah.
Also, who cares? Tayshia shows up. Derek likes Tayshia. Then Kevin shows up. He's in insane shape because he got injured and then had nothing to do after the most recent season of The Bachelorette.
Yes. Then Kevin gives Katie a compliment that
Super
made
weird.
me want to crawl out of my skin and die.
It was a weird comment.
He tells Katie that not many women can pull off a romper because they don't have the physique. Which I took to mean you don't like how some women look in rompers. Which kind of tells me that Kevin is really focused between his comments about like working out before he got there and then complimenting her only on her physical features and making that a very clear statement. That was just strange.
Well, not only was it a strange comment in general, the delivery of it was strange, and I almost give a pass in the way that I feel like he was very nervous. Like, everyone showing up. Well, the way he said it to me reminded me of how someone will stumble over their words trying to say something and start saying the wrong thing with the heading towards the intention they have. That being said, I feel like he was also trying to prompt a conversation about bodies and physical attractiveness.
Do you think he was fishing for a compliment about his body?
With a very long road to it, I think so. I think that he
Interesting.
was trying to bring up, like, hey, you look really good in that. And she's like, thanks. He's like, but now I need to explain why I think she looks really good in it. What's a good way of saying it? Bodies, this, trying to get to my body because I'm in shape and flirting. I don't know, man. I think he fucked up some flirting. Also, what a weird compliment.
It was just
It's not a
bizarre.
compliment. It's like a dig at everyone else.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. Is it was like most people look disgusting in this outfit, but you're beautiful. Like I don't
that's
know.
like-
It just rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, it was weird. Will shows up. Hannah's
Oh wait, hold on. There
Oh,
was
man.
one comment. Katie said something that made me very sad and seemed very off-brand for her. She comes across as a very confident woman. And she says in an ITM and in the Moment interview, she says, Kevin is being so nice to me. I don't deserve that. Which made me just really
What?
sad. Like, male,
Yeah.
female, anything in between, we all deserve kindness and people to be nice to us. Unless we have done something to warrant any other reaction. And that just, it made me sad that she was associating someone complimenting her physical appearance as being nice. And then also that she said, I don't deserve that. Right? It speaks to a deeper level of unworthiness.
Yeah.
And that I have like a radar out for how she kind of proceeds in the season, knowing that underneath her really beautiful and confident being is this, am I worthy enough? Do I deserve kindness?
Did she go to Paradise after Colton season? I don't remember.
This is Paradise after Colton season.
But Colton came to... Oh, that's right. I'm trying to think. I feel like I saw her on something else, and there was another... I don't know, maybe I'm... Either way, I hear what you're saying about her. I'm a little... We'll see what happens. I think she's almost intimidated to go.
I don't know, it's
and
just
starts,
weird.
like, cutting herself... Like, she's undercutting herself immediately, right?
Right, like she's...
In her ITMs, but I feel like maybe she's intimidated... I don't know.
She's
Whatever.
stunningly beautiful. She comes across quite confident. It just seemed very weird. And Fifi says, I'm pretty sure she was joking. It didn't seem like that. I mean, if she was, the sarcasm didn't read.
Yeah.
At least to me.
Anyway.
So Wills gets there.
We'll keep an eye. Yeah, Will shows up. He's trying to go after Hannah G, he announces, but Blake and Hannah kind of wander off right away. Demi shows up. Derek displays an affection for Demi almost immediately. And Demi talks about wanting to explore her fluidity. And I find
I'm so excited about this.
I'm very impressed, actually, with how ABC has handled Demi's sexual fluidity. I think they're doing a really good job of it. They aren't trying to play it up that it's an attractive girl. They're not trying to play...
At least so far, yeah.
At least so far. I mean, they've teased nonstop that she kisses a girl later in the season. But
they tease, like, ambulances coming, too.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right. It's not out of line with their usual teasing of things. And I think the way that she is given the airtime to explain what she feels and how she feels about it, and that she's attracted to people, and that's kind of her thing, I think is really healthy. And it's a conversation that I didn't expect to come from The Bachelor, but I'm really happy they're showcasing it in a way that seems fairly responsible at this point, compared to how they handled Colton's virginity and other sexual topics.
Yes.
Hannah having sex as a willing person with a willing person. Shocking. What? The shaming of Caitlin Bristow. The show has not handled sexuality in a healthy way very consistently, and so I'm tentatively impressed with how they're handling Demi's fluidity.
So I did just want to, because part of what we do and part of the lens that we watch the show through is sex ed and healthy sexuality and sex positivity, I wanted to define what fluid sexuality actually is for anybody who's like, I don't know what this is, but I don't want to ask because everybody seems to know.
Right.
Like, you're not alone, first of all, and ask questions. We're here to answer any questions that you have, and if we don't know the answer, we will find somebody who does for you.
Because we don't know everything.
So fluid sexuality, sexual fluidity is the idea that sexual orientation can change over time and depending on the situation at hand. So the concept of sexual fluidity doesn't necessarily get rid of the existence of sexual orientation, meaning that you can identify as heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, pansexual, but fluidity builds in wiggle room within that kind of box that many of us put ourselves in or have other people put us in. So not everybody experiences sexual fluidity, but from the research that's been done from the 70s with Alfred Kinsey all the way till now, most people have some aspect of fluid sexuality. Not to say that most people act on it, not to say that most people identify as bisexual. Mm-hmm. Again, they're two different things. So I just wanted to read the definition of that. And
it's important, I think. It's important to share the hard data that we have around things that are not well represented or explained in our culture, especially on television, because, I mean, this could be a lot worse, and I'm happy that it's as good as it is so far.
Yeah.
Additionally, in the comments, people are talking about when they had Hannah and Demi talk before the show, kind of a little precursor, and Demi's like, surprise, this is me. I think that Hannah, we're coming off of a season where she had shame based on her religious background around sex. Mm-hmm. And I thought it very interesting that they had her talk to Demi about her fluidity. And I think that the way they explained that was good. And I think that Hannah's like, oh, so you're still you. There's just more of you that I was unaware of before. And she's like, yes. Hannah's like, cool.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
That's what you're going for. I think I think they set that up to see if Hannah really was the person that she said she was around her beliefs. And I think that she is. I think that was an intentional setup to have Demi talk to somebody who had just dealt with a religious-based kind of shame around her sexuality.
Yeah, it's really like love is love is love is love is love is love.
Yeah.
And if you are somebody who's ever experienced feelings of love towards somebody of the same gender or the opposite gender,
Mm-hmm.
you know exactly what that feels like. It's like, it's no different from the feelings that you would have towards somebody who you would typically be attracted to.
Right. So I think that was all well handled. I'm very curious to see how the season plays out.
Yeah.
Especially because as soon as Demi walks in, Derek starts talking about her and showing interest in her. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and also, for just to address some of the comments, I think that not just is sexual fluidity not quote unquote accepted in Hannah's religious upbringing, it's just not discussed, right? Like homosexuality is discussed 100%. We know that. The concept of sexual fluidity is not something that's taught,
No.
which is really kind of fucked up when you think about it. Because again, like this research has been going on for so long, and yet we're not talking about it. So in terms of Demi having a relationship beforehand, we don't know about that yet.
Yeah.
Like that hasn't been discussed, and we'll get to that as it comes. Right now, we're just going with what we've been presented with, which is Demi essentially comes out, for lack of a better phrase, as being queer.
Yeah.
And being fluid in her sexuality.
Yeah. And if she had a relationship before and told the person openly and honestly that, hey, I need to go figure my stuff out, I'm going to go to this thing, which is also a dating, like, whirlwind, I guess I'll use the term. It's like, I don't know. If both people are on board...
Yeah, but we don't know that yet, so we'll...
Well, that being said.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get into it. Annaliese shows up, and she's annoying. That seems to be her choice on the show, to use an air horn whenever available, which, if I was on the show and someone just blowing an air horn at me, I would probably be annoyed as a viewer. I was like, oh. That was my reaction when I heard the air horn.
Yeah, and then Cam gets there, and instead of always be Cam, it's always beach Cam. And then he says...
I didn't like that.
Paradise.
I forgot. I legitimately forgot about that, and hearing it again causes me physical pain.
Yep.
Oh my god. Who said...
Then John Paul Jones arrives, and he is in a blue Speedo. And, yeah.
So, this is what I wrote down about him showing up. Why does the Bachelor franchise keep trying to make me like John Paul Jones?
Yeah,
it's not that he's done
it.
anything that's not likable.
No.
But what am I missing? What, like, Chris brought him out during the finale of Hannah's season, and he's like, whoa, this crazy guy, we're all so excited to see you again, to be crazy. And they had to, like, remind us that he was on the show at all. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't understand what the whole gimmick is. I understand that he likes using all three of his names. But, okay, there's a lot of people that do that. And then he chooses to show up in a Speedo and run screaming towards the water and then just stop. I'm just confused.
Yeah, I would love to hear from you guys, because I know that there are people out there, and you may be one of them, who really like him. I don't dislike him. I just don't understand why everybody's like, yay!
I don't. That's the thing. I don't dislike this person. I'm confused by why the show thinks that I love him. That's what it is.
Yes.
So anyway,
can I address something in the comments real quick? I just want to address the word queer. It used to be a derogatory word.
Yes. And
the LGBT, now LGBTQ, which is queer, community reclaimed that word. So if you want a bigger history on that, just Google search history of the word queer, and it's a very interesting story. I saw it coming up in the comments, and I wanted to... Yeah,
and Demi actually uses that word directly to refer to herself in her Instagram story when she made the announcement in general.
Yeah, and on Twitter.
That's confusing, though, because I also remember that being a derogatory term growing up.
Yeah.
So
Derek and Demi start talking. They hit it off. And then at this point, Chris Bukowski, Jane, Annaliese, Bibiana, Nicole, and Clay all arrive to the beach. So then Caelynn arrives. And this is when Caelynn starts talking about Blake. And she says that they talked for a few months. So this is the first thing that we're hearing. She says that they talked for a few months and he played her, air quotes for podcast listeners, and that she says she's hopeful that Blake will, quote, man up.
I hate that phrase.
I do too.
That is so stupid.
So Blake has a very interesting response. He actually runs and like physically hides almost, like to catch his breath from Caelynn. Again, we're getting an edited thing. I don't know how in real time this occurred, but it was made at least to look like that Caelynn got there and he like beelined.
Right.
So then we cut to commercial. And when we come back from commercial, I had to remember, because it seemed like Caelynn got there and then all of a sudden like drama started, right? And I was thinking back to Colton's season. And she was the one that started the whole thing with Hannah B, who we all now know and love. So it's interesting, and I'm not saying anything about anything aside from the fact that it is interesting that drama tends to follow Caelynn around.
Yes. I find her choice of words to be interesting, as they are very inflammatory, accusational words when we're only getting, at this point of the show, one side of everyone's perspective. I will address that there is stuff that came out after the episodes last night. We'll get into that on this show.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm like, why are you bringing the real world onto this crazy thing I'm watching right now? There needs to be, I immediately felt that there's a really intentional separation from Paradise, and like, it's a show, right? Bringing real world stuff into it tends to kind of break that wall a little bit. I think that it affects the regular franchise, The Bachelor and Bachelorette, when like an ex shows up out of nowhere. It feels odd to me to separate the two, or to not separate the two a little bit, and having her immediately start out with this was jarring.
It was jarring. It was very interesting because so Blake gets the first date card, and
producers are so good.
I know. Caelynn says Blake gets a date card, and that's really fucked up. So all we're seeing is Caelynn talking at this point alone in an ITM about Blake.
Additionally, at this point, Annaliese decides to make herself represented on the show by trash-talking Clay just 'cause. Because in her perspective, she's concerned that Angela, Clay's ex-girlfriend, is getting played. But they're also broken up. So that's confusing. And
We'll
also
get to
on
that
brand with my perception of Annaliese. Anyway, so...
And Janine, to answer your question, Janine says, how do you completely separate the two? I don't think that you do, but I think that when the stuff that's happened in the outside world is talked about on the show, we as viewers need more context.
Right, because we don't have camera crews following these people around 24/7, we don't know what actually happened. So for right now, we're getting one person's opinion over something, which is being presented in a very damaging light without hearing the other person's perception and perspective on what happened.
Right. So,
and it's important to get both sides of something before you create any opinions or judgment.
Yeah, so we both actually agree that it's really cool that things that are happening in kind of quote-unquote the real world are being brought into the show, because the show is the real world. As Blake reminds us later, like, it's TV, but it's his real life. Like, these are real people experiencing real feelings and real relationships.
Yeah.
We just need, as viewers, I want to see both sides of what happened and not just one person spewing shit and then the other person not having a chance to share their side until after the show is done airing and I have to go to Twitter or Reddit or Instagram to find out what happened. Does that make sense?
Totally. I mean, that was the issue with the whole Jed thing from last season, where we didn't want to just dump on the guy because we were staying unspoiled and we had not heard his side of the story from the People article. So I didn't want to dump on the guy until we actually had all the facts. Once we did,
then we
dump
dumped on
truck's
him.
open because you fucked up big time. But it's important to have that little bit of hesitation because it's so important to get the actual facts of what happened. So we do a commercial. I actually wrote down that the way Caelynn talks about Blake, it sounds like he did a Jed level of lying or something like it.
Yeah.
Really extreme language being used from Caelynn on this. So we go to a commercial. We come back to Dylan talking to Wells, the bartender, previous contestant on the show, about how he likes...
engaged Wells.
Recently engaged
Congratulations, Wells and Sarah Hyland.
And actually, I'm so impressed with Wells in general that he managed to break out of, like, just the Bachelor, like, incestuous world. He's, like, dating a famous person or engaged to a... Like, that's a bigger deal.
He is the best producer plant of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Wells is like, you know what I think you should do? You should probably go talk to the... You know the producers are in his ear like, Wells... Well, tell her to go talk to him over there.
I think Wells did a good job coaching Dylan.
Oh, my goodness.
Of course, Dylan starts to get a little at this point. He starts immediately being like, I think I only want to talk to her here. Like, okay, buddy, maybe do some research on the format of the show, because that's going to be hard.
So out of left field, Blake asks Tayshia to go on the date. Now, this was incredibly confusing, I think, to everybody watching. I know I was very confused.
Why?
His connection was clearly with Hannah G. And he gets the card, and then, like, literally out of nowhere, he's like, I pick Tayshia. It was bizarre, especially now knowing what we know later when Blake is talking to Hannah and says, you know, I really only have eyes for you. That was after. So, like, I don't know. This was the one choice that, like, he had not heard anything that was going on yet. He was not acting with any information.
Yeah.
This choice was bizarre to me.
Yeah. The only reason I wouldn't say it's bizarre is, so obviously as it comes out, like, if you're in the Bachelor universe and you're, like, one of the cool kids, you're in a group text message chain with most of the people, right? Or, like, separate groups have their own little cliques.
Yeah.
It's very much like summer camp. Like, everyone goes, who's going to summer camp this year? Are you going to go? Are you going to go? I don't know. I hooked up with this person over the winter, and now I don't want to go back to summer camp.
Oh, that's funny.
What's happening. So there's so much conversation between Blake, Hannah, Caelynn. There's so much going on that we don't know or see, which makes it hard to connect with the issues brought up immediately in this episode. So, honestly, when Blake asks out Tayshia, to me it makes sense, because he's like, shit is on fire. I don't think he's talked to her a ton. She's also very beautiful. It might, for him at the time, seem like the safest choice to pick somebody that he thinks is attractive and maybe can kind of distance himself from everything else until he's able to figure it out, because clearly he didn't respond well to Caelynn showing up.
Right. I'm just saying,
it's a great idea. I think it's
objectively, if he were truly there to get to know Hannah G more,
right,
then he would pull her as fast as physically possible, knowing that she is friendly with Caelynn.
I'm not saying I would do the same thing that
right,
he did.
But that's why I'm saying it's a little bizarre.
Yeah. So we find out during the thing that they reiterate Blake and Caelynn had hooked up over the time off, and then he does not want to talk about it or have anyone know about it. That's what we're being told by Caelynn.
You guys, the comments are amazing. We're going to get back. We're going to go in order.
A lot to get through.
But we'll definitely circle back to all of this, okay? So Hannah G says that she is super bummed. She's been wanting to meet him for months, and her interpretation of him picking Tayshia is that Blake doesn't want to spend more time with her, which, fair interpretation. That's how I would take it as well. I also think that at this point, Caelynn needed to tell the group what happened. If her version of what happened was true, she needed to tell more than just individual people, which each time she told somebody new, the story changed a little bit. And it was positioned in a way to get somebody to respond with, oh my gosh, poor you. I'm so sorry this happened. And we'll get into the specifics about it. But it seemed a lot like Blake being gone would have been a really opportune time for her to have a conversation and say, hey, this is what happened. I don't know what to do. I'm hurt and upset. Blah, 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 blah. Right? He's gone. It's like the perfect chance.
Right.
But she doesn't do that. And then she keeps saying, like, I just want him to acknowledge what he did, but she's not initiating contact with him.
Right. So that's also the issue in the way that we get this shown to us. We see her kind of whispering to a couple different people and then saying, why isn't Blake doing this? Why isn't Blake doing that? While not doing anything herself either. If you really want to have a conversation with somebody, you might need to be the one to have the initiation. Sorry, that's life.
Most of the time.
Right. So
it was not handled well, and we'll get into that when we talk about it.
Right.
But,
so Tayshia and Blake are on a date.
And Dylan is very excited about this because with Blake being gone, he gets to hang out with Hannah. And somebody in the comments mentioned earlier that Dylan was giving them a little bit of like Annaliese vibes. And I agree.
He's infatuated. That's the word I'll use.
He's like a little golden retriever puppy. Like, please stay with me, please. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So Tayshia and Blake on their date, they get pretty much the pre-fantasy suite treatment from the regular shows. They go into this room that's very romantically lit, that has a hot tub. That's the first date on the show. In case you're
that setting was stunning.
That is warming up for a fantasy suite.
I mean, the lights, it was breathtaking.
Yeah.
Breathtaking. So they talk about what they want in a relationship, and Blake says something really, really sweet, and I loved this quote. He said, if you can love the wrong person that much, think about how much you can love the right person.
That's nice.
I really loved that. Yeah. I thought it was so sweet.
Yeah. He also oh, good.
The term fuckboy keeps coming up, both on the show and in the chat. If you guys are watching or listening, can you leave in the comments what your definition of a fuckboy is? Because we're going to get into talking about Blake, but I'm curious what the word fuckboy means to you.
Yeah. Tayshia also talks about on the date what she wants from a partner, and she wants someone to create a family with, and someone who's going to be supportive of her. She uses the word cheerleader, but she had actually said a healthier version of that before, with someone who's supportive through all of her what she wants to do and everything else. Cheerleading, I get the metaphor.
Yes. So then we flip back to Caelynn.
Talking shit about Blake.
And she says that they had... So this is the first time we hear, like, the story.
Oh, yeah.
She says that they had sex. The next morning, he told her that he had slept with Kristina the night before. And that after, when they were laying in bed, he was DMing Hannah G. Then he ghosted her, meaning Caelynn, and asked her to lie about them ever being together. This is the first time that we hear.
Yes.
Now, if we fast forward all the way to after the second night episode, where all of these text messages were released, which we'll talk about, we know that this story is not fully true.
Yes.
However, just hearing this story sounds horrible.
Right. Pretty damning way to start this conversation. Fairly heavy accusations to level at Blake. So... I also wrote down, at this point, it's like half into the episode of the first episode of Bachelor in Paradise. I wrote down, I don't care enough about these people to be presented with this as soon as possible. I don't give a shit about Caelynn's problems with Blake right now because I've seen them for all of 15 minutes after, like, a year. I don't care. Like, pick a better person to make a leading scene with or something. I don't know. Maybe that's me.
Okay. So Derek and Demi go into the jacuzzi. They're making out. They're actually really adorable. I think that at their core, they're both really great humans.
Yeah.
I know it's really funny. If you listen back to our first episodes on Colton season, we raked Demi over coals.
Definitely trash talked Demi in the past. But as time went on, new information about her came out, and I changed my mind based on things that I had learned after my first statements on her, which is a human being thing to do. It's like why we have these brains that can do all these things is that when we take in new information, we're allowed to change our perspectives and our opinions because we learn something.
It's really interesting. And I thought about this because, it's interesting. Okay, so Dylan goes to ask Hannah to talk, and now they're making out. I wrote down, is she rebounding off of her perceived rejection from Blake, or does she actually like him? Because it seemed like she was very disappointed that she didn't get the date, and then all of a sudden she's making out with Dylan. Now, both could be true. It doesn't have to be or. It could be and.
Absolutely. Life is messy.
Yeah, and I love this conversation. We're going to get back to this fuckboy conversation that's happening in the comments.
While all this is happening, Blake and Tayshia make out a bunch, because they're in the most romantic hot tub of all time. Shocking.
Yes.
And then commercial break. And it comes back to Cam and Jane talking, and I wish they would just fall in love and leave the show right away, because that's my opinion.
So then we skip down, and Caelynn is telling Onyeka the story, and she tells her that they FaceTimed 3 times a day and texted all the time, and that Colton was the one that set them up. And they're essentially making it sound at this point that Blake said, you were a mistake, no one can know. But then he said, let's not talk about it on Paradise. And then Caelynn talks about how she thought about things that she didn't say to Blake. So this gets into a bigger conversation that we're going to have when we recap episode 2 today. Is that nobody is a mind reader.
So weird.
So we have to communicate what we want and what our expectations are and what we're hoping for and looking for in anybody, even if that's a one-night stand.
Yeah.
It is not a horrible, disgusting thing, objectively speaking, for a single human being to have sex with 2 other single human beings in 2 days. Now, you may not personally agree with it.
Right.
You may not want to be one of those people.
Also okay.
You may not want to be the one initiating it.
Totally fine.
But objectively speaking, it is not a bad thing to do that.
There are no laws preventing this.
That is what being single is.
Additionally, I have 2 things. One, I think that the girls in Paradise think that Blake is hot because the other girls say that. And it's like the confirmation bias you see at restaurants where they fill the tables that are most easily visible. So you're like, oh, well, a lot of people think that place is good, so I'll go there too. I think that's what's happening with Blake, where a lot of the girls mean objectively he's handsome and appears to be a well-rounded, nice person. So I liked him on Becca's season.
Yeah, I think we all did.
Right. So I get that, but I also think that it's the same thing where everyone's like, Blake's so hot, and the other girls were like, oh yeah, now that you say that, now I'm thinking that because everyone's saying it. I feel like it's a weird confirmation.
It's like a group think type
thing.
It's
like I think it's called confirmation bias. Secondly, my issue around, depending on how Blake handled the 2 nights sex stagecoach thing is one thing, but if you just view it from the top down as what it is, 2 single people had sex one night, and 2 single people had sex the next night. This is also the format of the fantasy suites.
If they have sex.
If they have sex.
Yeah.
And no one but Luke P seems to have a problem with that.
Right.
So, again, I'm feeling like this is being blown way out of proportion for the situation, especially for the first episode, although, man, ABC swinging for the fences with the drama, which I guess is why we're all watching. Okay, you got me.
I was like, oh,
is that why they do it? It's so weird why they record these people and give them alcohol to lower their inhibitions. It's like, what?
So at this point, of course, who's back? Kristina.
So she even says they dated. She uses the past tense of the word date before the sex.
Yeah. So
stupid.
Then we see Caelynn telling Sydney, a similar version of what she told Onyeka.
Yep.
And Kristina asks Blake out on the date. Now, Kristina says in her ITM, "Today I'm going to make Blake my bitch."
That's not awesome.
Now,
that's not a great way to start this out.
I want to flip this around for a minute. If this were completely gender reversed, okay, let's say Kristina's on the beach and Blake walks down. He's pissed. He's hurt. And Blake says, "Today I'm going to make Kristina my bitch." Uproar. Right?
Uproar.
Not like beyond. The internet would like explode.
That would not go well.
And yet somehow Kristina says it and it's like, oh, it's not okay. Like,
especially taking somebody on a date and leading them
to
under
ambush
false
them
pretenses. Because she said, "I want to see if you want to go on the date so we can hang out and talk." And then in the ITM says something else. So she's leading Blake into this date under false pretenses, and that's lying.
Yeah.
The thing that the franchise gets really upset about when it's the main show, but when it's these little lies, seems to gloss over. She's manipulating Blake into a position where she can attack him.
Yeah,
as we see.
And it wasn't a good look for Kristina.
I also question Caelynn's choice of who she tells the Blake stuff to.
Yes.
Because on the seasons we have seen,
on
the seasons we've seen, both Sydney and Onyeka have gone out of their way to be confrontational with what their assessment is of someone else's dating behaviors. And so I would be remiss if I didn't think that Caelynn is telling people in a slightly strategic way. Because who would you like to get on your side if you're trying to get someone to feel bad about themselves? You would get the most outspoken, verbally aggressive people you could, and that happens to be Sydney and Onyeka. It would be Demi in this case, if Demi was the person I thought she was when we first saw her in Colton season.
Right, and so the whole point of Paradise, objectively what they tell us, is to potentially find your person, get engaged. And Kristina comes in with a date card with an opportunity to meet a new guy that she hasn't dated, and she uses it to yell at Blake.
And bring in old stuff from the real world into Paradise.
That had nothing to do with anything. So
it's the end of the episode.
This was not good. And it's clearly an overcorrection. Like, she was very much a doormat. I don't like that term, but like she was a doormat and very passive the last time she was on the show with Dean. Yeah. And I think that this was an overcorrection into I'm being overly aggressive instead of just being assertive. That Janine, you said it perfectly. Janine says, "It frustrates me that these women made these choices and then give up their power by turning themselves into total victims and not owning their decisions." Exactly. Yeah. You chose to sleep with your ex-boyfriend. Like, Kristina and Blake had broken up, then they were at Stagecoach and slept together. You chose that. Part of choosing to sleep with someone who's single is you don't know what they're going to do the night before or the night after.
Nor do you have any control over it because their genitals do not belong to you.
I mean, they don't belong to you when you're in a relationship either, but
we have slightly more say as to where they go.
Yes, you do. You do. You agree on where they go and where they can't go.
So that's the end of the first episode. We'll get right into the second one. We get the coming up in this season.
And we can just skip that because it's like the same as...
Wait, you mean it's the same? There's making out and crying? What? On Bachelor in Paradise? No.
So let's just take a quick break, stretch. This is our in-between...
He's a little peppermint.
Our in-between episode dance break. If you are here with us on YouTube, whether you're live or watching the recording, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. It helps other people find the video, and it makes our hearts really warm and fuzzy.
I would love to give my perspective, Ahmed, about Gigi Hadid and Tyler.
While we're in this in-between?
Yeah. Between these little peppermint things. They're both single. Hannah did not ask him to be her boyfriend on the finale of the show. She said, let's go get a drink and talk. And Chris is like, whoa, you want a date card? And she's like, no, I want to go get a drink with Tyler and get to know each other and talk.
That's it.
That's it.
Like, that's it.
That's it. I mean, like...
Okay. Are you guys ready? Are you ready for the second episode? I'm ready. Let's do this.
I wrote down, let's hope for less Blake drama. Oh, wait.
So I gotta say, after the first episode, I was like, is this just gonna be about Caelynn? Because what happened last time we had Caelynn drama during Colton season was she created this like story around her and Hannah
having some beef.
And then we like never heard about it, and it just kind of went away, and it like took up a lot of time. And I was kind of afraid that that was going to be the case with this. And so it kind of felt like, I'm not going to lie, like Tuesday during the day, I was like, I hope tonight's episode is better. And it's not that I didn't enjoy the first episode. It just dragged a little bit.
Yeah,
and
it did drag a lot of it, in my opinion.
Producers, kudos. The
Yeah.
second episode,
very dramatic.
super good.
So it starts out with Annaliese sharing her personal perception and opinion on someone else's dating situation.
Shocking.
And it's super overdone.
Shocking.
And I also don't care. So, Blake talks to Tayshia about going on the date with Kristina. Tayshia shares that she is interested in Blake, but, you know, the idea of the show is to date various people and see what you like and what you don't. And, you know, she's supportive of that.
And can we just acknowledge how great it is how Blake handled this? Like, all the other shit set
In
aside.
this part, yeah.
He wants to make sure that he touches base with her, that him saying yes to this does not mean that he did not have a good time the night before.
Yes, and I think that's so healthy.
Because, again, we all put different meanings on
Yes.
things, right? So, like, the meaning of money, for example, to me, may be different than the meaning of money for Kyle, which means that I'm going to act and behave differently around money than Kyle will. So because we're in a partnership, and because even if we were just friends, it's important that he understands my meaning of it and I understand his, so that when I say like, oh, there's no money in the blah, 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 he knows why I'm feeling that way.
Yeah.
So that's all Blake was doing, was saying, this is what this means to me. And I think that that is one of the most fabulous things that you can do with communication, is make sure that the meaning is shared. And that's something that in our work with couples, it's called shared meaning, and making sure that symbols and roles are all shared.
Totally.
Okay.
Well, it's so important
I
to have
digress.
So, an interesting situation happens here. Caelynn, again, now has her screen time, and she says she's been hiding a secret while Blake goes around on this beach and has fun. You've told a bunch of people. You're not keeping a secret at all.
Also, it's
You've told
her
like 4
choice.
people.
It's her choice.
Also that. She is choosing to tell some people while Blake tries to have fun while you stare daggers at him from across the beach. That's what's happening. So, here's something also that happens. It's very telling of the situation. I feel really bad for Blake now, retrospectively, in this moment. Because I thought it was kind of weird at first, and now knowing what we know and how everything plays out, it's even worse.
We'll talk about.
Kristina and Blake are going to go on the date. So he reaches for her hand as they go, the same way he walked away with Tayshia. Because you're going on a date. People that go on dates tend to hold hands. They don't have to, but he reaches, and she, like, pulls her hand back. And he's like, you don't want me to hold your hand? And she's like, no, dude. So maybe she doesn't like physical contact when she's not sure if there's an emotional connection yet. Maybe. That stood out to me as a little odd, though.
Yeah. So then Caelynn's telling Sydney, and she keeps saying that she doesn't want there to be secrets. And my comment is, then don't agree to keep it a secret. So, like, you had this interaction with this other person. even if this person said, can we please keep this a secret? This person, being Caelynn in this situation, has the power to say no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She is just as complicit in not telling anybody, which she is anyway.
A bunch of people.
She is just as complicit in that as Blake is.
Mm-hmm.
She was there. They were both doing the thing. She can tell them just as much as Blake can. So if you're sitting there saying, I really don't want to, hold this as a secret anymore, then don't. Then go talk to Blake and tell him that you don't want to hold this as a secret anymore.
Go get confrontational with him because he's the person you want to talk to instead of spreading your opinion behind his back. Additionally, Sydney and Caelynn are having this conversation, and then I forget which one of them says, you can't just go around dating everybody.
That's literally what the show is.
That's the show.
That's Bachelor
That's
in Paradise.
You're upset because he went on 2 dates in a row, one of which is about to go a certain direction. But that's the show. Also, when you interacted off the show, you were both single. Again, you have zero input on what the other single person does because you're single. So, yes, you can go date everybody. Blake, date everyone in the world. Go for it because you're single, and that's okay.
Yes. So, we wanted to bring up specifics around communication and it not being semantics, but it actually being communication. So this phrase kept getting tossed around of, he told me that it was a mistake. And in different conversations, Caelynn would say, he said it was a mistake, then he said it's a mistake, and then he said you're a mistake.
Like she was the mistake.
So this is just a really... it's a moment where we need to all acknowledge that our language is incredibly powerful. Because saying that was a mistake is really different than saying you're a mistake or you were a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
All of those things mean really different things, right? We come back to this idea of shared meaning. Yeah. And our language, the way that we speak, the way that we then tell a story to somebody else, it matters. It changes so much. If Blake said, you're a mistake, that is really different than saying, this was a mistake. Like, us having sex last night, whoops, this is a mistake. So, we both, we paused it last night because we were like, this is why communication and picking your words is so important. And sometimes, we'll call out people, whether it's clients or friends or family, where they'll use a word that doesn't make sense. And we'll ask them to clarify.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'll be like, oh, that's just semantics. And it's like, no.
It matters.
No. It changes the complete meaning. So sex can be a mistake. Just like me taking the subway instead of taking an Uber can be a mistake, or vice versa. Right.
I mean, it's like that restaurant I took you to for your birthday last year, where everything looked great. I trusted. I didn't call the restaurant, do a little extra research. I just trusted that it was all gluten free because Rachel has to eat gluten free.
I have celiac disease.
And we went, and it was not good. Going there was a mistake. The restaurant is not a mistake. Their existence is fine. My choice of going there was a mistake. There's a difference there.
Yeah, or maybe they made a mistake.
Right, I'm not accusing the chef, the owner, the server of being mistakes as human beings. I'm just saying they served some terrible food, and it was my fault for going there.
Yeah.
It's all about how you use your words. It's so important.
So anyway. Words are incredibly important is the long, short summary of that.
Right. So here's what I've learned from this second episode. Blake is never going to Stagecoach ever again. Dude is burned out on Stagecoach 100%. I don't think he'll ever go near it. I don't think he's going to talk about it. He may never go to another festival.
Truthfully, though, the biggest winner of this whole thing?
Stagecoach.
Stagecoach.
Yeah.
They're getting so much free advertising. Like, how many times last night was the word stagecoach said?
So many times.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Kristina's
so then it's
mad.
Kristina's date with Blake.
Yeah.
And they go in like is it an ATV?
Sure.
RTV? ATV.
Yeah, alternate vehicle.
There you go. And all of a sudden they're at like the romantic talking portion of the date. And she confronts Blake in a very aggressive way. And Blake says, okay, I want to tell you what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically tells her the same story, minus Caelynn, minus the part about telling Caelynn that it was a mistake and not to tell anybody. That was the only part that was not referenced.
The
correct?
way, from his perspective, he said that he and Caelynn had too much fun, and they seemed to both share feelings of, not, I won't use the word regret, but it's sort of the, oh, that happened. Ooh, maybe we had like too much fun last night. That seems to be the impression that he's giving off, like, yes, this happened, but we also realize that, like, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Like,
so
let's
then
move on.
Blake says, I want you to be honest with me. Do you have feelings for me romantically? Because this would make a lot more sense if you did. Which is very insightful on Blake's part. Like, are you just upset because you still have feelings? Because then if she was like, yeah, I do, he could be like, oh, okay, you're hurt.
Right. Which is, I was actually very impressed by that line of questions from him.
Yeah, I was as well.
So, because then obviously all of it would make more sense. And so at this point, he has, without really fully knowing it, and we get to see it more because we watch the ITMs, he has sussed out that she doesn't have a leg to stand on. That she's upset at what happened without really, because her feelings were hurt. I think that she has romantic feelings for Blake and didn't want to confront them. And so their reconnection at Stagecoach, then finding out that he slept with someone else the next night, even though situationally totally fine, she's still upset about it for her own personal feelings.
Which is okay.
But at this point, she starts throwing anything at the wall that will stick and says she just can't stand how men have been treating women, and so she's upset at this situation. Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, she did not answer his question. And then she says, I think what I'm most nervous about is that he'd do it again. If I'm someone important in his life, he needs to treat me with respect.
You weren't
So we need
dating.
to talk about mutual consent here. If two people have sex, two people need to consent to that sex, any sexual activity, right? So if you are not in a committed, monogamous relationship, you cannot control what that other person does before or after that encounter. You can ask questions. You can have feelings about what they do before or after. You can be hurt about it. But you cannot hold that person to a standard that you have not communicated to them.
Yes.
So if he slept with Caelynn the night after Kristina, if in her view it was disrespectful and hurtful and absolutely horrendous that he would sleep with somebody after her, then she needed to say that. Because from where Blake was operating, he was single, not committed, had sex with an ex that he was on good terms with, and then the next night, it sounds like he got drunk and had sex with Caelynn.
That's what it sounds like to me.
And that's it. At least from, like, what we know.
So, all of a sudden, Blake has this moment of clarity appear on his face. And he looks at her and says, I would never ambush you on TV. Why did you wait to do this until there are cameras? This is real world things. So, at this point, I think that Blake has fully realized that she is upset at him for his actions because of her personal preferences, which is not fair for her to do to him, and then waited 2 months until there's cameras before ambushing him under the pretext of a date.
Yeah.
That is manipulation, and he caught her in it. And then she had nothing to say.
She said, you humiliated me.
Well, she
so she was trying to humiliate him back.
She felt humiliated because of something someone else did that had nothing to do with her. And then as a return, she wanted to do it back to him when he didn't actually do anything. This is her perception of the situation.
So Blake says, you're acting like I'm this really bad person and I didn't do anything wrong. And Kristina says that he doesn't see the big picture and he's not owning up to his actions, when what we've seen is Blake owning up to his actions.
Right.
He didn't deny anything.
No, if anything, Blake might be a little absent-minded and not fully aware of his actions from time to time. That being said, he's not doing anything wrong either. So he may be not fully aware of the ramifications of a one-night stand sometimes. Usually with one-night stands, you're not aware of the ramifications because it's a one-night stand. And so that can be part of it. That being said, he's not doing anything wrong.
So additionally, Amber, you asked in the, hey T. Rendy, welcome.
Hey.
Amber says, I didn't think she found out until the week before Paradise. So Kristina found out, I believe we know, it was like 2 weeks before. But here's the thing.
Still.
He's a single dude. She does not need to know. Everyone was acting, not everybody, but many people were acting as though Kristina deserved to have the truth. They were not together in a relationship. What Blake did with Caelynn or anybody else is none of Kristina's business.
In fact, actually, you know what would be really disrespectful? Texting your ex when you hook up with other people afterwards.
Yeah, like, hey,
That's
just FYI, I just had sex with so-and-so. You'd be like, what?
That's fucked up to do. Because then you're rubbing your ex-partner's face in it.
Right.
Whereas this,
like,
if anything, Blake was doing the respectful thing by not telling her. Did he go about it in the best way? Maybe not, but he's doing the better thing in this situation, in my opinion. There's one thing I wanted to jump into the comment really quickly. Flaky Gaming says, although sending DMs to Hannah while still in bed with Caelynn is not very classy, I agree.
Yeah.
Probably not the best decision. Not great. That being said, still okay. Like, he's not...
Yeah.
Is it classy? No, but he's not breaking any rules. They're not dating.
Right.
And...
Not the best.
Then she's also snooping at his phone because maybe he's texting, like, I don't know, like the person who's, like, house-sitting for him or something. I don't know. It was a weird thing to be able to reference so specifically.
That's true.
Because, I mean, speaking from my own case, when I was single, I would, like, not want people to see, like, I don't know, whatever.
So then we cut to a commercial and we come back, and Caelynn says, I'm done talking about Blake, and then continues to talk a lot more about Blake. And Onyeka says it's degrading to Caelynn to hide her. But here's the thing. Again, Caelynn is choosing to remain, quote-unquote, hidden. So Caelynn says that she wants him to stop gaslighting her. This is... this irritates me on so many levels.
This is why people don't know what real gaslighting is.
Yeah.
And that's why we had an over-explanation for it during Hannah's season with Luke. Because what he was doing, that's gaslighting. What Blake is doing is being an absent-minded single person.
He did not gaslight her at all. At least not that we saw.
At that time especially. We'll get to what happened after the show.
So then Caelynn approaches Blake. And
this is after the voiceover from Blake, where he's just looking to relax after a really terrible date and a rough time. And Caelynn's like waiting for him.
So Caelynn says, I feel disrespected. And Blake says, by who? Like, he's like ready to like protect her.
Yeah.
He's like, who? Who's disrespecting you?
Yep.
And she's like, by you. And his head goes straight into his hands.
So then she says, Paradise has not been fun for me. I also would like to mention, I have not seen her try to have fun. I mean, if I'm a kid and I'm sitting in the playground by myself, not choosing to engage with anybody, and then I complain that no one's playing with me, Whose fault is that? It's yours. Mine.
Yeah.
That's my thing. Go have fun.
So he is legitimately baffled. He's like, I had no idea that this was happening.
We were friends.
Yeah, he said we talked about being much better as friends. Caelynn says, and I said, sure.
So you agree that what Blake's perception of the situation is that
accurate.
You were friends and you just hooked up and were like, whoa, and left? That's accurate. She just agreed
that
her line of story that she told to other people is a lie.
And then he says, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you felt this way. He doesn't remember ever making the mistake comment. And Caelynn lays into him and then walks away when he tries to respond.
Yes.
And this is something called stonewalling. And what happens is stonewalling is when one person in a couple or that's having a conversation completely shuts down and essentially turns into fight or flight or like done. So if Kyle and I are having a conversation and I say my piece and then get up and walk away to where he can't respond, that's stonewalling. If I were to cross my arms and do this, that's stonewalling. It's not allowing the other person to communicate. You cut the other person off.
Because conversations are two-sided.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's a lecture, and one person's taking notes.
Yes.
So she walks away.
He's just sitting there like, what the fuck?
But it also negates her experience. And actually, Flaky Gaming nails it right there. It negates everything she said. Because if you can't stand up to it and say what you mean and actually negotiate the conversation, then obviously something about what you're saying doesn't hold up to someone else's attempts to understand. Blake was not defending. He was apologizing and asking to know more. And she refused to keep talking. So it tells me that she doesn't have a lot to say.
Right. Like, she kept saying, I don't want to keep hiding. I don't want to be this secret. And Blake sitting there asking her questions and apologizing. That is all he was doing, was asking her questions and apologizing. And she's like, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm out. And then leaves. So that's not okay.
Right.
Like, it's not okay.
And someone in the comments, who was it, mentioned, want to know about Blake's response. Lana, interested to see about his reaction. Blake has shown a lot on this show that he is very emotional and very open about his emotions. And
in touch with his emotions.
So when he finds, because here's the thing, regardless of, as we found out later, what happened, Blake likes Caelynn as a person, I think.
Right, he respects her.
I think that there's a lot of people in this world that can relate to a situation where you were a little intoxicated or it was a perfect situation and you fooled around with somebody that you had a lot of positive feelings towards, but not romantic ones. And then as soon as it happened, you're like, whoa, that's not for me. I'm sorry. Let's see if we can figure out how this works now. That's what this seems like. And now Blake finding out. So I also think that Caelynn's been sitting on this and planning this for a while. And then getting the words that she wants to use, like, I felt humiliated, I felt disrespected, you're gaslighting. These were very powerful words. So her dumping those on him, when he's like, whoa, I'm just trying to figure out, it shows two very different intentions in the conversation, and hers is to hurt, and his is to understand and apologize.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like a conversation that would be happening this way.
And that's what Bartulan just said in the comments. I thought it was telling that Blake was apologetic and forthcoming with both Kristina and Caelynn, yet neither of them granted him this. They wanted to tell him off, not have a conversation.
Right.
Spot on.
Totally.
I agree completely. And
okay.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, there's a commercial break, and we come right back to Anyenka getting more screen time to not date anyone, to not talk to anyone, to not go swimming, to not talk to Wells, to not have fun on the beach. She gets more screen time to trash talk Blake. Yeah. Because that's a thing, and it's apparently her role on the show.
So then at this point, kind of everybody is under this belief that Blake just has completely fucked up, because all they're seeing is Caelynn crying and leaving and walking away from the conversation. They didn't see why she left. They didn't see how it went. And so now Katie's talking about that Blake may have led her on. Demi's a little buzzed, and she says that he hasn't owned up to things and telling people it's a secret, but, like, it's not. So then Blake, in an In the Moment interview, says, it looks like we slept together and I bolted. That's not what happened. This is awful. I look like the worst human in the world. Okay, so we need to talk about this fuckboy thing, because this is why I asked you guys for your definition. So most of you in the comments agreed that a fuckboy is somebody who goes around and has sexual relations with other people without caring about their feelings. That was like the general consensus, okay? That's not what Blake did at all.
No.
And I think that calling him a fuckboy when the evidence we have is he was single and had sex with consenting women is not fair to him.
And I see comparisons between him and Dean. Watching recent seasons of Bachelor in Paradise, Dean jumps from women to women in the same day over and over and over again, and then tells one that he really likes her and that he's going to want to be with her, and then goes back on that and goes to someone else, and then does the same thing to her, and then does it a third time too.
That's a fuckboy.
That's being a fuckboy.
Right. You're dismissing somebody's feelings in order to get some.
If we found out that Blake was doing something like this on an every other weekend basis, then maybe.
Okay, yeah,
then maybe.
Sure. But even then, it's like...
But I don't hear him, or I don't see anything or anyone talking about how he would ask them out on dates, or this is a 2-day, 1 weekend situation that is now getting Blake labeled as a fuckboy, which is...
Yeah.
I feel like it's inappropriate labeling for the amount of things that he's done at this point.
I agree.
If his behavior like this continues the rest of the show, then maybe, sure. But we haven't seen that yet. I'm hesitant to give him that label. And also, I feel like someone had mentioned in the comments they're trying to play him up as the villain for Paradise. I think that production picks a guy each season of Paradise to kind of like promote as like, oh, this is the promiscuous one. It happened to Ari, of all people. Of him going around kissing everybody on his season. The producers always look for someone to play up as like more promiscuous. So I'm hesitant to give anyone labels at this point of the show.
Additionally, Flaky Gaming, I agree with you that he was more apologetic with Caelynn than Kristina.
Yeah.
I believe, and obviously I'm not him, so I don't know, but I believe that is because he was so caught off guard by feeling ambushed by her that he was actually upset at how she handled it. So instead of being like, oh, I'm sorry, he was like, what the fuck are you doing? And like...
In line with Blake's reasons for being upset around that, Kristina then goes to poison the water with Tayshia.
Yeah, so wait.
Okay, go ahead.
Amber, I just want to acknowledge these. Amber says, we're judging this when we don't know what conversations they had and what actually happened. Right. And after the show aired, Blake released...
He set the record straight.
...text messages between him and Caelynn, which we'll talk about at the end. And like Cece is saying, being honest, like, what is that? Telling the world that you slept with somebody? Is that better? Like, what about the whole don't kiss and tell type of society motto that we have? So which is worse? Not telling somebody or telling somebody? And then last, Lana says, I think feelings are always involved in sex. It creates a chemical hit. I don't think there's any way feelings could not be involved. So, Lana, it does create a chemical hit, but feelings are not always involved in sex. They're just not. And that's both from, like, research shows us that and anecdotal client, like, just in the world that I work in, and we work in. Yes, you get a chemical hit. Yes, feelings can definitely come from sex, but not everybody experiences feelings when they're physically intimate with somebody. And that's okay. It doesn't make them weird or off.
Yep.
That's a very typical thing.
Yep, totally. And Tamara, I mean, yeah, you get it. Tyler's labeled as a fuckboy for no reason, based on physical appearance alone. So
yeah, that's true.
That's a great point to bring up. Okay, so Kristina shows how intentional she is being by trash-talking Blake by going to Tayshia to poison the water with her, to try to let her know who Blake is, when who she thinks Blake is her own opinion over being hurt that he doesn't like her the way that she likes him. That's what I think it is. And so Kristina, I wrote down, she seems to think that Blake owes to her to tell her what he does with his penis when they're just friends. So now, Tayshia takes this in and chooses to say something that comes up one more time in this show. Well, now I don't think Blake is a good person. I'm sorry. Blake is not running a dogfighting ring. Blake is not selling people.
He's not sex trafficking.
What the fuck? Blake being a single guy in his 20s, or a single human being in their age of singleness, doing what sounds, feels, and thinks will be good for him at the time, does not make him not a good person. You know what makes you not a good person? Being super judgmental around stuff like this.
Yes.
Like, that's a really, really... I mean, we got into the power of words earlier. This is a big one, too. Not a good person? Not a good person?
Now, it's okay to sit and say, I don't like that behavior, and I'm going to choose not to continue, like, exploring things with this person.
Yeah.
Because who I want to be with would not have sex with two different women in 2 different nights.
Right.
Right? That's totally okay to say.
Absolutely. That's not the person for me.
That's not the person I want to be with. That's okay. But saying he's not a good person.
He's not a criminal. And
like,
a lot of criminals are good people.
And also, there are great people who make mistakes. I'm not saying he made a mistake.
No.
I'm not even saying that. I don't want to judge it. It's
that
not mine to judge.
A strong line of words for the situation. Really.
Yeah.
Really not cool.
And Flaky Gaming on the nose.
Killing it
all
on
the
there.
girls are getting their info from Caelynn.
Right.
So that's their skew, right?
And it happens to Katie,
Kristina.
too. Well, it happens to Katie. She starts spreading it. Tayshia does it. So Blake is now super upset. The way that he's been approached on this show around this has been super not okay. It's been blindsiding. It's been antagonistic and aggressive. And I'd be insulted if I was him.
Yeah. So he is now in an in-the-moment interview, and he is clenching his chest. He is clearly about to have a panic attack. As somebody who has struggled with panic attacks and anxiety, that's me, I'm raising my hand, and who also has helped many clients with anxiety, he was about to have a panic attack. And the amount of shame and horrible things that were being tossed on him, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. So Tamara says, if you don't want to be the victim of a fuckboy, don't be a fucked girl. Give yourself time to have a conversation and develop a understanding of who you're dealing with. So I agree with that to a certain extent in terms of taking personal responsibility for your body. Like, if you're going to have a one-night stand with someone who you don't know very well, then choose that, but then don't be mad because they behaved in a way that you didn't know.
Right. I mean, go off the information you have at the time. One night stand, not a lot of information.
Right.
Anyway, even if they were texting ahead of time, doesn't matter. So now that we get a little brief reprise from that, we get some focus on Hannah and Dylan. Then we get focus on Dylan and Hannah getting interrupted by Wills, who announced that he has a thing for Hannah and tells her that he thinks she's a really dope girl. So she says, that's smooth, and they make out. Which, okay, come on. So Dylan shows up, breaks it up. He seems annoyed and tense.
Dylan's like, fuck that guy about Wills. And I'm sorry, but like that's what Paradise is.
I wrote down Dylan might be too nice for Paradise. Dylan does not like Wills. Hannah does seem to have a bit of FOMO around not leaving herself open to someone else. I think that she's waiting for someone to show up or waiting for Blake to come around or something, because
Well,
I don't
she
know.
and Blake have been drawn to
Right,
each other
right,
from the
right.
very beginning,
Yeah.
which is why I thought it was so fucking weird that he asked Tayshia out on the first date. I swear this could have all gone down differently had he asked Hannah out first.
Poor Wills.
I know, poor Wills.
So
Also, can he dye his hair back? I don't like the blonde.
yeah, I don't love it as much. Anyway, so we go to commercial. Here's something really interesting. It's only a quick clip, but
Wow, we got a wrap soon.
it
Holy
bothers
moly.
me just a little bit. I know. Thank you guys for staying on with us. This is a long one. We're going to tighten up the format on the next one. This 2 hours, 2 nights in a row is rough.
Well, it's 4 hours of content to recap. It's a
So-
lot, man.
Clay is working out. We get the cut that we saw where he's just working out and all the girls are staring at him. And then
Which is
Tayshia
hilarious.
says he's a piece of meat.
Ugh.
So here, let me just really quickly. What if any of the women in Bachelor in Paradise were working out on the beach, and then any of the guys on Bachelor in Paradise said, she's a piece of meat? How do you think that would go in our culture and in mainstream media?
Not great. Not great. Not great.
Let's pay a little more attention to how we talk about people, regardless of gender. Because what Tayshia said, from my perspective, is objectifying, and it's not okay. Because I wouldn't want to talk about a woman that way. I wouldn't want to talk about anybody that way. I would not do that to a dude. I would say something else probably, like that guy's in insanely good shape.
Right.
Which, I don't care if that's her implication, or what she means to say. It's a little bit of a double standard.
Well, and that's again coming back to language. Like, choose your language wisely. A piece of meat is inherently an objectifying phrase.
Yep.
Right? Like, if somebody called me a piece of meat, I'd be like, ugh.
Right?
Yeah.
Weird. So,
okay, then we get, I just want to, like, push through this Vivian and Clay thing is silly.
yeah.
She thinks they have a connection. They
don't.
And then
Annaliese says, I don't want to get caught up on someone else's thing. I don't want to be going around talking shit. And then she gets caught up on someone else's stuff and then goes around talking shit.
yeah, so Clay chooses Nicole to go out on the date, and I think that they're actually very sweet together. I
Absolutely.
think that they have very similar personalities from what we've seen of them, which is very little.
Yep.
But from what we've seen, they seem like they go together.
And this is after Annaliese attacks Clay right before the date starts and lays into him.
AB says, what if you're a vegetarian for the piece of meat? It's like, wow, that's a hunk of broccoli.
I guess it would be something more phallic.
Wow,
I don't know.
you're a head of cauliflower.
A big carrot.
You're a
Anyway,
bunch of bananas.
So Annaliese does this weird thing where she attacks Clay, and then she projects her life experience onto Clay and Angela.
Oh,
She talks about how guys just aren't honest.
oh,
And Clay's like, but I'm being honest.
this killed me.
We broke up, and she's like, but guys are dishonest. And he's like, no, I'm not. So he lets her know that she might be misinformed on what's happening.
One of the things that I really loved is that when she opens up the conversation and says, I'm in a really awkward position. And the first thing that he says is, I know you are. He validates her right away. Like, I know you're friends with Angela. And before she says anything else, it's like he's acknowledging that he gets it. Anyway, sorry, continue.
No. So he does that. He claims that he and Angela have been done for a long time, and he wants to move past it and enjoy the time in paradise. She doesn't listen to what he says and says, I just needed to get this off of my chest, and I don't want it to affect my time here. So this is another example of starting a conversation in an aggressive format, and then the second there's pushback...
It's like a bait and switch.
That they're like, oh, but I don't want to have this affect anything. I just wanted to get it off my chest. So she's being super selfish and saying that she needs to get something off of her chest to someone else. But then, after saying she doesn't want it to affect her time, she personally attacks Clay. She says,
yeah, this was bad.
You weren't going to get picked up by a football team. Your life isn't crumble. Like, your life is crumbling. She insults his career. The fact that, and by the way, that's a huge deal for professional athletes. If your goal is to be a professional athlete and you're like right there, not getting to that next step is crushing. That's big. And that is so so fucked up to say, especially when Annaliese has identified herself as one of the most sensitive people I have seen on reality TV. Blanket statement. So it's super messed up. She attacks his personal and professional life on television, and then Nicole shows up.
Thanks, producers, for
and
sending her in.
saves him. And he tells her, he's like, you saved me.
Yeah.
Right then and there.
And Clay says in an ITM he's not going to let him face him.
Best thing about that, Demi calls out Annaliese later on for doing what she did. And like, hey, it's not cool that you can say those things, but you did it right before he goes on a date. And that just seemed very intentional. And like, maybe don't do that.
So they have a great date, Nicole and Clay.
Yeah, it's nice.
Annaliese does admit to Demi that she was basically talking to like her last few boyfriends while she was talking to Clay, which again, like, not cool.
She owes Clay such an apology based off of that.
So we go to a commercial, we come back, it's the rose ceremony, they're all getting ready. And Blake is in an ITM interview saying he's going to have to go into hiding after this. He is sobbing. Mm-hmm. He says, this is going to be so hard on my family and friends. This is my real life. I know this is television, but it's my life. Mm-hmm. He is absolutely destroyed. I want to know, do they have a therapist on set for Paradise too?
I would hope so. I did write down, whatever producer is tasked to Blake knows him so well, they crack him like an egg. Every time there's time for Blake to get emotional,
it's really
man, I don't know. That's rough. That's rough.
And it's really, so Bartolon says something in the comments that I just really want to read on air because I think it's so important. The conduct of half the women on this season has been so problematic. The near unilateral praise for women, quote, clapping back on men in this franchise has excused some unwarranted aggression. I agree with you completely. Yeah. And it's really, really fucking unfortunate because there are guys like Luke P., there are guys like Chad, there are guys like James Taylor and Leo who absolutely have done things, and Lincoln, who have done things that warrant some really unkind words. Yep. And the way that people like Blake and Clay are being talked to, it is not okay. No. It's just not. We need, as a culture and as a society, to learn how to express our feelings in a way that we're still expressing them, but we're not attacking the other person when it's not warranted.
Yeah, totally. And love seeing the understanding and conversation of the comments because you guys are all nailing it. Okay, so...
And of course, like we know Annaliese has been played a lot of times. She had the whole thing with Camille. It's horrible.
I love her. Poor girl doesn't have luck with men. Maybe stop going on TV to find them. Call me crazy. Yeah. If I was going to go for one format to find a partner, regardless of what it is, speed dating, reality TV, whatever, and it kept going poorly, you know what I'd stop doing? That. Yeah. I would stop that because it's not working.
So Onyeka and John Paul Jones are making out, which is really weird. And she says that she feels connected with them, and I felt like that came so out of left field. I was like, wait, what? Did we miss something? Did this skip forward?
Demi gets a second to speak. Exactly what I was thinking about Blake and all the girls. I just don't give a fuck. It made me so happy to see. So Demi's apparently very happy with Derek. They're flirting. They're comfortable. She thinks he's going to get his rose.
Then Jane and John Paul Jones do this cheers with tacos, and then John Paul Jones, who is hammered, proceeds to vomit all over the beach, which was just so great to watch. Thanks for that.
Too spicy because of her weird hot sauce thing? Do you think? Because I've seen people throw up because they ate something that was too spicy. Or do you think he was shit-faced? Or, most realistically, a combination thereof. Gonna go with combination.
So, I'm gonna say something about the comment section.
Yeah.
Absolutely same thing about Chris Bukowski as Annaliese. It didn't work X amount of times. Maybe try something new. But, good for you guys for being on the show. What I wanted to say was, if that you guys are seeing anything that is, feel free to use this podcast and this video as a way to communicate to people
Mm-hmm.
why, like, to support what you're saying. Because I know that a lot of people are online right now in support of the way that Caelynn is behaving, in support of the way that Onyeka is behaving, and the way that Kristina is behaving. It's not okay. And similar to the Luke P thing, sometimes it's really hard to, like, you just don't want to get into, keyboard wars.
Right.
So we would love it if you guys just shared this
Yeah.
and had people listen to it,
Yeah.
so that they can learn about it.
So we get into... Oh yeah, Caelynn is talking shit to everybody about Blake still, somehow. And Blake pulls Tayshia to want to see if she's willing to give him a chance to, like, move forward from the what's going on in the show. She shares that Kristina was painting him in a very bad light, her words. And so he's like, all right, I gotta go talk to Caelynn then, and I gotta start getting into this. So he goes to talk to Caelynn, and it's over in 30 seconds. The thing that Caelynn said made her feel all of those terrible things was solved by under 20 seconds of talking from what
really
we saw.
Weird.
So it's that fast. But she ends it by saying in an ITM, Blake has consumed her time on the show so far. You have consumed your time with Blake on this show. And then she gets, in my opinion, what she deserves, which is Cam hitting on her.
Oh, then she makes out with Cam, that's right.
But she keeps asking who he is the whole time, which, that's not a good sign, Cam. I know you're happy. You looked happy. You said you were happy, but when the girl you're trying to hook up with keeps asking who you are, it's not great.
So Annaliese and Chris play doctor. She says that she hasn't dated a, quote, man like him in a while. And then Kristina comes to take Chris. Chris and Kristina connect on the beach. Hannah talks to Wills about her heart being with Dylan, and that it was really scary for her to talk to him because she's a people pleaser, which I loved her calling this out.
So good.
It was really, really refreshing.
Especially from her, too. For some reason, I didn't expect that, and I was actually really blown away that she's like, I people please, so I'm trying to move on from that.
Yeah. So she tells Dylan. Dylan is very happy. They make out. Blake is setting up a whole romantic thing for Hannah, which at the time seems like very strange. But then when she gets there, you're like, oh no.
They have a thing.
Like, they have a thing. Like, he's not out to lunch. He, like, is just acting on this. So then Blake and Hannah talk for a while. He basically wants to see that there was hope from her. Like, he described it as, like, a little bit of light, and he's gonna, like, pry it more.
Yeah. All the while, Dylan is at the bar talking to Wells and Demi about how much he cares for Hannah and trusts her to do the right thing for her.
And then Hannah tells Dylan about Blake.
They made out a little bit.
And Dylan says, I just feel like I look so dumb sometimes.
Oh, in his in the moment, that
like,
was such a genuine thing. He's like, God, I feel like I look so dumb.
And then Demi is super buzzed and tells Hannah that Blake is a loser. And Hannah's response was like, ugh. It was just awkward. And then we cut to the end because there's no rose ceremony, which, what the fuck?
I know.
What the fuck?
I know. So we end this. Blake is... I understand the want to stay on the show. I also understand that there's some value in laying low after a confrontational situation. And I also understand that you want to go after the person that you may have been talking to before summer camp, once you get there, like, right away. But he was a person of frustration and interest to the group, did what was being talked about him behind his back first. And then he does something that will definitely make waves as a result. I don't know what would have been a better thing to do in this case, because I'm not on the show, nor am I a person who would be. But I don't feel like that was the best, and I'm curious to see how it plays out.
So, Flaky Gaming, I agree. I don't think that Cam is a bad guy. I just think he's a bit quirky. I don't think he's a bad dude. And
I just find his mannerisms kind of annoying.
It's fine. And AB asks, why didn't Hannah tell Blake what she told Wills? That's because she likes Blake. She was not into Will. She's into Blake.
No.
So what came out after the episode?
Okay. So this is really, really interesting because
this was fascinating. I almost couldn't sleep last night.
I know. Blake had when they started calling him not a good person, I think something really triggered Blake because I think that he prides himself on being a good person. I think he is.
Yeah.
I don't have a reason to think he's not. And I'd like to think the best of everybody, right? So,
until proven otherwise, yeah.
Until proven otherwise. So, what we saw on the show was a fabrication on Caelynn's part. 100%. Except for the actual intimacy that happened. Because Blake shares to his Instagram story. Well, we're not going to show them, but at least reference them so I get the terminology and the words correct. Texts between him and Caelynn leading up to the night at Stagecoach. And the issue is immediately, so maybe it wasn't handled the right way afterwards. Maybe Blake could have been more honest to Kristina. Maybe Blake could have told whatever, or maybe anything. Here's the deal. When Caelynn comes over to Blake's, she is the aggressor.
Yeah.
In this case.
Okay.
100%.
So these are the texts before Stagecoach.
We're getting into conversations that happened outside of the show moving forward. This is something that Blake released last night after seeing how he was portrayed and Caelynn was portrayed on the show.
And we will wrap up, you guys, within the next 10 minutes, just in case you're like, oh my God, this is the longest podcast ever.
This is going to be the longest podcast ever.
This is really long, and we know, but we really wanted to hit on all this stuff.
Next time will be.
So Caelynn says, okay, I'm coming. This is at Stagecoach. Blake says, no, LOL. She says, dude. He says, dude. She says, it's fine, chill, it'll be good. And he says, no, that's what they all say. Caelynn says, come on, loosen up. Blake says, don't tell me to chill, with laughing emojis.
It's all very lighthearted banter, where some person's like, I'm going to come over, and the other person's like, ooh, maybe we shouldn't do this, because I know where it's going to go.
Caelynn says, let's just have a good time, man. Blake says, again, that's what you all say. Caelynn says, I just ordered an Uber. So then there's just more banter. Blake says, we can cuddle, but no sex. And Caelynn says, yes, sex, only sex. And Blake says, I have willpower. And Caelynn says, ha, lies.
So
then, last things about Stagecoach. He says, I know you when you get a little alcohol. And she says, say it, I dare you. If I come over, it's strictly for sex. Nothing more, nothing less. And he says, that's what they all say. And she says, I'm just trying to be honest.
Do you see how when you talk shit on live TV or on recorded television, I say live.
Yeah, it's not live.
I think it's like how people say that it's live action when it's like CGI that looks realistic, but it's because it's reality TV. Because we watch Big Brother, I think it's live. Anyway.
Used to watch Big Brother. We haven't watched it for a long time.
Yeah, no thanks.
So
anyway. She's getting caught in a lie.
Right.
And Blake followed these texts up with the whole thing being like, hold on, stop harassing her. Like, I don't want this to happen. But he went out to clear his name. He can't control how people are going to respond. Caelynn said really, really fucked up things about him. And now people are holding her responsible for her words. And the way that she accused him of doing things he didn't do.
Yeah. So
there's also something else to this.
This is where it gets weird. So those texts were at Stagecoach when they had sex, right? They had sex afterwards. Wait, hold on. There was one more. Okay, 1 week before Paradise.
So Caelynn's a fuck. AV in the comments, that made me laugh. I don't think Caelynn's a fuckboy in this. She just didn't. I don't think that she thought this would ever come to light, and I don't know what she was thinking saying that on Paradise. Don't these people know by now that everything in their life is up for grabs from society? People want to know what they're doing in their day to day. That's why the text and the Bachelor Nation thing is so important to be aware of, because when you go on the show, your life is not confined to the show anymore.
Yes.
Your life becomes a lot more interesting to a lot more people.
Tamara, you're correct. Hannah B tried to warn everybody about Caelynn.
Yeah, she did.
So 1 week before Paradise, Blake texted Caelynn and said, "How you doing? Just wanted to check in." Caelynn said, "I'm good, better, everything is good." Blake said, "I feel better too. I think we are overthinking everything. I still want to talk about it all, but we will be all right." She says, "Same, same, same." On Tuesday, May 28th, Caelynn texts Blake and says, "Hi, did you tell Hannah?" He says, "Hi, no, not yet. Why?" Caelynn says, "I'm just stressed and can't stop thinking about it. I'm hoping she won't think it's a big deal."
It's supposed to be I'm assuming this is Hannah G.
That I'm guessing.
Right? Because that means that if Blake and Hannah are talking and he's worried it's going to be a thing with her and Caelynn knows about it, then Caelynn knows that he has romantic feelings for Hannah, and then why would she even say what she said on Paradise?
Yeah. So then Blake says, "Call me." Caelynn says, "Dude, I'm freaking out."
We don't know what prompted this.
We don't know what she's freaking out about. Blake says, "Shoot, LOL, call you in 2 in the car with parents. Yeah, I'm scared. I'm thinking about pulling out of Paradise." Blake said that. Caelynn says, "Dude, I'm shaking. Who knows? And how? We've been so careful. What happened?" Blake says, "Sorry, I'm going to let my phone charge for a bit and call you back. Did you talk to Cassie?"
Why is Cassie involved now?
Then Caelynn says, "Don't stress, we'll figure it out." Blake says, "Easier said than done." Caelynn says, "I don't know what to do. We have a week to decide. I want to think about it for a little bit." Blake says, "No, I need to tell before then so that she isn't crazy mad when she is down there." Caelynn says, "I don't want to make this decision today, though. Can we wait until, Wednesday?" Then Blake says, "Okay, Wednesday morning," and he asks again, "Have you talked to Cassie about it yet?" Caelynn says, "Yeah, her and Colton didn't say anything. I don't get it."
Do you think it's because is Hannah G and Cassie really good friends, or are they really
I
good
don't
friends?
know.
Something about that is really,
Yeah.
really interesting.
So here we go. This is 3 more texts. Blake says, they didn't text back. And this is what Hannah says. This is what Caelynn says. "I really don't want to tell people, but I also don't want people finding out and looking like a liar.
Ooh.
No, I told them. They just told me they don't know how anyone found out." Oh, there's one more page. She says, "Can we just take the day to think? It's not something we can undo, so I don't want to make the decision hastily." Blake says, "Well, what are you leaning towards?" Caelynn says, "I think it may be better to be honest, but I honestly don't know." Blake says, "Well, I just don't think you will feel any more comfortable and sure if we have another day to think. I guess let's just be honest. We fucked up so bad." Caelynn says, "If we play it off as not being a big deal, then it's not. Everyone hooks up in this world." Blake says, "It's gonna be, yeah, but not everyone is you and me. I'll call you in a bit and we can talk more." She said, "Okay."
So, while I don't think that doxing or harassing people on social media is a good thing to do, I can understand why Caelynn is getting a significant amount of backlash because, well, she said one thing privately and then went on national television to viewers of millions and lied and trash-talked someone's character, and then that person who was trash-talked and had their character brought into question laid the record straight by releasing actual text that proved not only his integrity and her full knowledge as to what they agreed on doing in mutual support in the situation. That is probably one of the more fucked up things I've seen happen in my brief time watching and observing The Bachelor from this viewpoint.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Cassie and Caelynn are best friends. What I'm not sure about is how close Hannah G is with Cassie and Caelynn.
What do you think that Blake is trying to protect Hannah G from having the information that he hooked up with Kristina and Caelynn back to back?
No, I don't think the Kristina thing
actually matters
to this.
So you think that Blake is trying to keep the fact that he hooked up with Caelynn away from Hannah because he has real romantic feelings for her, and Caelynn's in on it? That's what you think is happening?
I don't know.
Shit, I don't know. I'll have to find out.
But we're along for the ride, and we hope that you guys are too.
Whew.
Thank you for joining us.
For joining us for 2 hours. I am going to go eat 100 cough drops. My throat is very sore. Well, this has been an amazing first episode of Wright Reasons Bachelor in Paradise edition.
Don't forget to thumbs up this video.
Thumb the video up. We will give you a shorter version of the next one. We're going to try to get it back to its normal time.
Yeah, but it's double the content.
It is double the content. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for everything in the comments.
Share the video, like it, subscribe, rate, review, say hi on social media.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.